Welcome to the Man Down Podcast. My name is Ted Knutson. I'm joined by lovable co-host Patrick Van Straten, and we are here to fuck up your life in the best way. We give you practical advice, we give you thoughtful feedback, we give you honest, vulnerable conversations about stuff that you're interested in and that you need to know. Today, we are talking a little bit about dating again. We're talking about meeting people in person and the mindset that you might have, and maybe some elements of approaching people in uncomfortable situations. We're also talking about finding purpose in your job and work life and how that might impact your decisions or your happiness in your job versus finding purpose outside of that. Also discussing a little bit about the job market, how to make yourself stand out in your CV and resume applications, and whatever else happens to come to mind. We're short and sweet today, much like Patrick in a little mini dress, but he's kind of sexy. So stay tuned. So today's another episode built off of feedback from our readers and listeners. Wait, we don't have readers, do we? We only have listeners in this particular man down space. Unless they're following us on social media, we'll count that. Anyway, it's built off of reader listening feedback stuff. And we do read all the comments that you guys give us. Patrick just reads the compliments, but that's the type of person that he is. So we wanted to tuck in real quick. It's going to be a fast episode because some people, in fact, all of us, have childcare to do. I want to talk about something that actually follows on from our last episode that I thought was pretty interesting, but it refers back to an earlier episode. It says, an issue I've encountered with telling people how I feel hurt, I feel frustrated, is that other person can simply answer it with, so your feelings are your problems. It's an optimistic assumption that everyone is naturally empathetic, and the fact that they hurt someone's feelings would bother them. Now, I know we both have a response to this. It might overlap, but go ahead.
If this is a personal relationship and this person doesn't care about your feelings, doesn't care that they've hurt your feelings, I'm not sure where you're meant to go from there. It's very hard to build a productive relationship if they don't care at all. Now, if what they're saying is, I don't think I did anything that merits that response, that's a different kind of question. But if they just simply don't care about it, I really don't know how you're meant to build any common ground here. And my assumption is that in any kind of interaction, you probably do want things. If this is a person at work, you can say to them, that's not a productive response because we've got to find a way to work together. If it's, say, a sibling of yours, then you can say, my feelings aren't really my problem unless you don't want to have a relationship with me. Like, we do need to work through our feelings about one another. That doesn't mean that you're fully responsible for them, but it does mean that I want you to take stock of this behavior. So I do understand the argument that somebody can just say your feelings, your problem. And this idea that, yeah, we decide how we feel about something, it's somewhat true. But if somebody is saying this to you, then I think that they are either being defensive because they know they've done something wrong, or they are not really a person with whom you can have a productive conversation. And either way, you're learning something important here. If somebody truly doesn't care about your feelings at all and thinks that their behavior has no effect on it, they don't need to think about what they've done in the slightest, then you're learning that there's a limit to how close you can ever get to that person, I think.
Sure. Information is power and it teaches you how to treat the situation. So if this is happening in work, sometimes in work, it might be that's what the money's for.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to have praise, but being in a situation where you know that you're not going to get it then teaches you that either you need to adapt your expectations about this, and the work has to be merit and the money has to be the merit on its own. And you might have a challenging situation in terms of like your mental space if you're like, oh, I'm looking for praise, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. That's fine. It's again teaching you about what your expectations should be. And in plenty of cases, it's teaching your expectations about this person is that they're not going to give a shit about me. And if I have to work with them, so be it. But like we're going to be a little bit at war. We're not going to be particularly collaborative. And that's not a great thing to be. And I tell you, your bosses don't really want that.
Yeah, exactly.
The people that are running companies, like they want everybody to be collaborative and positive sum. They don't want it to be zero sum. And if you win, the other person loses. So yeah, I think all of that information is still useful. And that's why having the conversation and then getting someone's response is valuable. It teaches you stuff. If they want to be responsive to you, if they want to build a better relationship or to care, then they will respond differently. If they don't, if they're clearly opting out, then you're like, all right, I don't need to put energy into trying to make this better consistently. I need to change my expectations around it.
But really what you're focusing on here is this, that I understand this idea that they're rejecting the feeling, but the feeling should be accompanied by context, right? You don't
Mhm.
just say, I feel frustrated. Well, I guess you could do that. But what you're really saying is, I feel frustrated because when you say this, it makes me feel like you don't care about my opinion, for example. Well, at that point, there's something very simple this person could do. You're making clear what needs to change. Are they just rejecting that bit, or are they just trying to reject the emotion? Because they can try and reject the emotion, but the other part of it still stands.
Right.
So I think that you can try and shift the conversation here. You can say, well, I feel hurt because you don't really do your share around the house. Then you can say, do you feel that you do your share around the house then? That you can always have that conversation as well, but it's possible with some people too that they just need a bit of time to get used to it. Like a lot of people will hear you say, I feel hurt because of this thing that you've done, and they will think, but I'm a good person, or so therefore this reaction must be unwarranted, so therefore you're the problem. There's a lot of resistance in
How
some
dare you
people.
have emotions that are counter to what I'm interested in your emotions actually being?
Yeah, and this thing as well of just like we control our emotions, we're in charge of our emotions. We do have more control than some people want to admit. We don't have total control. That would be ludicrous
Mhm.
to assert that. So I think that there's a certain kind of generally like a kind of rationalist adjacent type guy who might say this sort of thing, ignoring the fact that it's actually not rational to create an enmity with someone who you have dealings with in your daily life. So I don't know. Like, if there is somebody who's saying this, I'm not saying you need to cut them out of your life. I'm saying you should give them a few bites of this, and you might want to approach it from some different angles. But if you never get anything other than your feelings are your problem and they don't concern me, then I would consider downsizing this person's role in your life, if that's
Right.
possible.
And I think the way that I walk through life, and I think the way most people should walk through life, is to give people the inherent benefit of the doubt most of the time. Like most people are
Yeah.
see themselves as good people, they're trying to be good people. And a lot of times when something negative happens, it's not intentional. It's not like someone's intentionally insulting you for something. You had a reaction to something that you didn't necessarily understand. If someone's
Mm,
being intentional about it, or they're explicitly telling you, I don't care about your feelings, go fuck yourself.
mm.
You're like, all right, well, I don't need to give you the benefit of the doubt. That can then change how I feel about you. Like you're a neutral in my life, you're a negative in my life. In some cases, I would like to jettison you, and in some cases, I don't want to work here anymore. Can I go find ways to go find other places to work that might have a better environment and be more conducive not only to my learning process but my mental health and all the above? And these are just useful pieces of information, but it's also table stakes for having like slightly challenging conversations and in
Yeah.
some cases just being
Mm.
collaborative, period. So I think yeah, we are not bothered by this response. We just take it as information and figure out how to go from there. There's another one here that's very short, but I think it's short because this person has asked this question in a few different contexts. So finding purpose with work, especially a 9 to 5. And I think the broader context is like, I would love more information on how do you find purpose with work?
So, firstly, I want to do my defense of the 9 to 5. I think the 9 to 5 is much maligned. There are a lot of people online who are basically invested in implying that they're more spontaneous and fun than you. And they say things like, I can't believe people still do 9 to 5s. And I'm in Bali right now, while you're sitting at your desk, like the same place you sit every day. But the 9 to 5 is actually a very valuable thing to have. Firstly, it's predictable, which means that if you want to go on maternity leave, or if you get sick, or even if you have a problem at work or you don't like doing your taxes, these things will be handled for you. This is all good stuff. And I think as well, there's something here. It feels like there's some background assumption here, which is that like work is meant to fulfill us in many, many different ways. And in the same way that we had this conversation, we're talking about relationships, I just don't think that's true. For some
Mm.
people, they want to push the boundaries of what's possible in their field. They want to be the best in the world. They want to leave behind a legacy. And other people want to earn a ton of money. And other people want to have regular hours. And other people want to retain their mental kind of bandwidth for other things that are going on in their lives. People have all sorts of priorities. And when you think about those priorities, you might realize that actually your meaning does not come from work, but that work can facilitate you finding that meaning.
Mhm.
So when this person says finding purpose with work, finding me, which I interpret as like finding meaning, I guess, um, I think, well, if you're not in the job that you want, I understand. I understand that sense of frustration, but you might, if you really think about what matters to you in your life, realize that your work enables you to do it. So about twice a year, I think about all the people I know who earn twice as much as me, because I know a lot of, intelligent grads with good jobs, and I think God, I should find a way to make more money. They all earn so much money. I want to make loads of money too. And then I remember what their working lives look like. I remember that they miss bath time and bedtime often. I remember that they work weekends. They're at somebody's beck and call. I remember that they're surrounded by shark-eyed cutthroat fucks who are trying to leapfrog them at all times. I remember that they get horrible pressure from their bosses. I remember all this stuff, and I think I don't want that. I don't want a bar of that. And if you offered me that extra money to do that job, maybe I'd do it for a year. Maybe I'd do it for 2 years. But you know what I wouldn't do? I wouldn't do it for the rest of my working life. So I get my meaning elsewhere. I get my meaning from time with my wife. I get meaning from time with my kids. And I think that to me is the way that work gives me purpose without the work itself having to do it.
Cool. Patrick is on lag duty, but I think we got through that one.
Okay. Well, as long as what I said was there, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think it was because it's directly related to this as well. We've got another question that says, I'm 27. I'm caught in a bit of a rut right now. I got a first class honors degree and a master's, and I'm still stuck in my graduate job, which I got 4 years ago. I applied to endless jobs with only a few interviews. What's your guys' thought on the job market right now? And our degrees actually worth it? So this is tied a little bit into the purpose and value and work and 9 to 5 thing. And I wanted to tell people how I think about stuff and kind of how I've piloted my life so far.
Mhm.
In my 30s, I knew nothing about sort of sports betting and particularly about running a bookie. And then I helped turn around one of the biggest offshore bookies in the world. In my 40s, I built StatsBomb and sold it. And so I built a mid 8 figure company and then sold that to an acquirer. Again, not knowing how to actually run a company for real, never having done it. It's never too late to do cool new stuff, right? And I think that that is something that people need to take on board with defining purpose as well. Sometimes your work right now is either about facilitating you finding purpose in your life, in your hobbies, in your friends, in your girlfriend, in whatever, right? And work then pays for your bills, pays for your food, but like your real life is elsewhere. And you can be attached to your work, but plenty of times you notice that somebody's like, they clock in, they clock out, it's their time, and that's okay. And
Mm.
in plenty of companies that is okay, that's great. It won't mean that like you'll run the company one day, but regardless, like that's not what you're there for. Your purpose is outside of that. In work and in life, many of our 20s is often about experience and experiencing elements of work, elements of different careers or jobs, and trying to find something that is kind of compulsively interesting to you. Compulsively interesting work is incredible. Like it makes work feel like play. And finding work that feels like play is a magic place to be. Now, sometimes that will consume the rest of your life. and sometimes it competes for all the time and thought resources in the entirety of your personal life. They go into work, and then suddenly you look behind you and 10 years have gone, and everything else that
Mhm.
you might have wanted to do is gone. You need to be aware of this stuff, but it's never too late. You should always be kind of open to new opportunities that seem really interesting to you.
Mhm.
And you should continue searching. But there are definitely times where your purpose is not going to be in your work. Your job just manages to accomplish the purpose of keeping you alive and giving you enough money to do some things. And then your purpose has to be elsewhere.
Hmm. And yeah, I think that's totally true. And there are just like going to be seasons in your life with this stuff. I mean, when it comes to things like the job market and whether degrees are worth it, depends what you want the shape of your life to look like. Like I think degrees are good because they can help how you think rather than just like teaching you stuff. But I'm talking from a particular angle there where that was what my degree was designed to do. And not all degrees are designed to do that. Some of them are vocational, for example. I imagine that you have learned some stuff in your degree which you may be surprised to find is useful later. Like I know that we all know the kind of Steve Jobs like, font design story, but but I find that things that I learnt at school come back and are useful now. So I guess just like accept that this is all stuff going into the hopper and that it will make you a more rounded, more fruitful person wherever you end up work-wise.
I also think that it's a resource allocation thing. So if your degree is going to be crazy expensive, like think about not doing it, especially if you can find jobs that, have a path into real educational learning experiences. And most
Mm,
jobs that take you on board, especially as a young person, are going to expect to teach you. In fact, in my company, we didn't want to take many young people because we knew that we didn't have the capacity to educate them in sort of a fast and aggressive way in order to help us out. The other side of it is the job market's tricky and it's going to be tricky for quite a long time. The
mm,
bigger reasons are macroeconomic reasons. Basically, like nobody understands what the world looks like under Trump. No one has any confidence that it continues to exist in any particular form. And in places where people don't have confidence and security in the business sense, they're less likely to allocate money to new projects. They're more likely to hoard resources in case something goes wrong.
mm,
And therefore, that impacts your jobs directly. And so be careful out there. The other thing I would say is something that I actually covered on social just recently, which is that if you have jobs that you want, finding a way to get into somebody's email box that can make decisions and that you can sort of show, hey, I'm super interested in this. I'm taking on free work. I've done this thing for you inside of your company because I thought it would be cool to improve it or whatever, because I'm super passionate about it. I would love to talk to you about it. If you've got any sort of job that's available to me, please let me know. And don't do just that one time. Like if you haven't heard anything after a couple of weeks, new thing, pop up in their email box. New thing. This is true in university space as well. Like I know like the power of persistence, polite, gentle, not crazy persistence, and trying to influence people and showing that you're passionate and you would love to work somewhere is overwhelming. And it comes up
mm.
again and again in the stories of folks, but very few people actually go through with that because they worry about it or they're not sure about what's happening at the other end. And am I wasting all of my time? Honestly, when you're compelled to want to work somewhere or want to have a particular job, that doesn't feel like wasted time. That feels like learning and skills. And so, like, that's kind of the balance. And it becomes quite apparent as a decision maker that that's what's going on. We don't have any jobs, by the way. So please don't chase me down with this. Like, when we have jobs, I post them. But for other places, it's quite useful.
When you're doing the podcast solo one day, then people will know that there's a job available. When we've eventually had to part ways due to my laptop malfunctioning.
Or
Um,
because nobody likes me.
I think you'll be all right. Look, that goes back to the topic of our previous episode as well, Ted. Why are you speaking so badly about yourself right now?
We got one more on here that you want to hear my answer.
Well, I want
So
to hear your answer on it. Yeah, because a couple of people basically said that they really appreciated stuff that we were saying in the dating episodes, but that they were kind of like, okay, now I feel like I've maybe adjusted my mindset.
mhm.
Now I want to get started. And somebody said, I think it's worth trying to tackle how to approach women in common settings, though he lists bar, coffee shop, gym. I would say be wary of gym. You've done so well articulating how to better ourselves and appear much more appealing and approachable, but basically wants some guidance on approach play and execution of attempting to get a number. Man, this makes me feel like it's the 90s. This is sick.
There's an element of pickup artist here. There's also an
Yeah.
element of golf.
Yeah, which is upsetting. Those like women golf. If it, to me, those things should not mix.
God, I love a tennis golf skirt.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but I just think women are above golf. Golf is below women, in
uh,
my view.
okay, I respect that. The biggest thing here is twofold. You have to have a mindset that says you should get more reps and you want to get more reps. And so you have to get practice at it. You have to figure out what works, what doesn't. And it doesn't have to be just in a dating sense, right? Like just getting comfortable talking to people in an impromptu way is a skill set that translates over here.
Mm,
The the thing that people stumble on though is they're really concerned about the outcome. They're concerned about the outcome of, am I being awkward? Is this person giving me their number? Is it not? I'm so nervous. What if I embarrass myself? Just worry about the process. And I know this is really hard, right? Because like maybe sometimes you've had a drink or maybe you're in a dry spell, you found somebody really attractive. You're like, oh my God, but the thing is, really attractive, learning how to talk to that person, like that's all you're trying to do. Because that's dating in general. Like I'm talking
mm,
to an attractive person. This is great. I'm having fun just interacting with an attractive person that is here. So do it regularly. divorce yourself from the anxiety around the outcome. And these things tend to flow pretty naturally.
Mm.
You will fail. You will do dumb stuff. I still do dumb stuff. And I do dumb stuff in like the corporate space too. There was a time a couple of years ago where I was in this room full of media CEOs that I got invited because my investment banker friend invited me, and he was the only person I knew. And everybody in this room ran companies that were worth like multiple billions, and I'm just like hanging out with some other kid, and we're both like startup people that want to talk to people in this space. And I've never felt more imposter syndrome than
Mm.
that particular time. It is so hard for me to talk to people because I knew nobody. Dating feels like that in so many instances. But you just divorce yourself from the outcome. These people will probably never remember that they talked to me. It doesn't matter. They're not going to call security over and make it uncomfortable that they
Mm.
I talked to somebody about the owning the Chicago Cubs. Um, the other thing that I thought was really interesting is that imagine dating somebody that didn't like you. Imagine dating somebody that like was sort of disgusted by you, but you had to spend time with them.
Imagine. I think for a lot of us, we can just remember.
Maybe that's true too. But what you're trying to do with dating is find somebody that enthusiastically opts into you and spending time with you. And the counterpoint is not that you're alone. The counterpoint is being around somebody that hates you all the time, but that you're sexually attracted to, and you can't close that gap. Like if you take that as the other way, then you're happy to be rejected by somebody that's not into you.
Hmm.
That's a
Yeah.
really interesting mindset switch, right?
Yeah, that's true, actually. That is interesting. And I guess d- do you think that there's something to be said for trying to find a way to differentiate yourself from other people who would approach somebody?
You should be yourself because that's the only way that you should be. Now, being unique, much like in the, finding a job and being enthusiastic and positive, like, yeah, you should find ways in your reps that seem to work generally, that show that you're funny in your own way, that show that you're a bit different, or that at least you're just paying attention to the person, right? You're not just swiping right in real life or
Hmm.
swiping left or whatever it is on the particular app that you're doing. So yes, like it does help to differentiate yourself, but sometimes that's like peacocking a little bit, having an outfit that's interesting, somebody like, and walking up to somebody and giving them a compliment and saying something that is specific to them at this moment. Like that's gold. It's the same stuff that you have to do on the apps. It's just in real life, and if you do that regularly, then it becomes much more comfortable. I think we'll do more of a larger episode around dating and practical approaches, and also honestly give us feedback. This is a great place to give us feedback on what you want to see from future dating episodes. Maybe even if you want to link to other places that you saw people talk about dating and you want us to take it and give our own spin or our own feedback on it, like that's awesome because we love that type of stuff, and I know that you guys like to see it, and I know that you're having experiences, right? Like it's been months since we did those early dating episodes. Like, what do you think that's working? What did you find elsewhere that's working that you thought was like you want to educate the rest of the people that are listening? That's great. So I think that's going to wrap us for today. We're short and sweet, much like Sabrina Carpenter. Actually, let's be honest, Patrick's the man child. So we're going to wrap that up here. But 5-star reviews, tell your friends, give us feedback. We love you, and we'll see you again soon. Patrick, say goodbye to nice people.
Bye bye.